Hi again, Jerry here. Welcome to Boils and Ghouls Horror Cinema Film Club presents 100 Years of Horror Icons, an illustrative review. Continuing our retrospective look at the greatest horror movie monsters, masters, and maidens through my illustrations and animation. In our previous videos, we've looked at some monumental characters from the first half of the 20th century, as well as some early masters and queens of horror. In this video, we'll be taking a further look at some other Scream Queen greats and masters of horror. But before we get started, help support the channel, please click like and subscribe to be alerted to future videos. Vincent Price. As an actor, Vincent Price's early roles mostly had him portraying the antagonist of a picture. By the 1950s, Price had developed a comfortable niche in horror films and was often referred to as the Master of the Macabre. Price shines in House of Wax as Professor Henry Gerard, a wax figure sculptor in a museum that becomes horribly scarred and disfigured when he is caught in an inferno, but in his rebuilt museum, the wax figures in the new display are all wax-coated people who were murdered and fell victim to Gerard's demented plans. Vincent Price became one of the most iconic faces and voices in horror movies, and from 1950 to 1975, you'd be hard-pressed to find a horror picture that didn't star him. He starred in many other great genre pictures, such as 1971's The Abominable Dr. Phibes, Madhouse, and countless others. A title that I don't see disappearing from his biography anytime soon, Vincent Price was always billed as, known as, spoken of, written about, and referred to as the Master of the Macabre. George Romero. George Romero redefined the concept of zombies in his ultra-low-budget first outing, Night of the Living Dead in 1968. But hidden behind the bloodthirsty and flesh-craving automatons from the dead is a tale of survival amongst personalities intent on continuing with existing societal divides, such as race, gender, or class, long after the fall of civilization by the endless invasion of the undead. Romero plays with these societal conventions in each of his subsequent zombie horror flicks, including a deliberate commentary on consumerism by having a group hold up and fortify in a locked shopping mall in order to ride out the growing threat outside in Dawn of the Dead. He also puts capitalism under the microscope and dissects it in Land of the Dead. Jamie Lee Curtis. Although Jamie Lee Curtis was not the first Scream Queen, and only been in a few horror films in her long film career, the movies she did star in had considerable impact on the genre. In the late 1970s through early 1980s, Jamie Lee ran a considerable risk of being forever typecast as a screeching damsel in distress, particularly given that she starred in no less than 4 horror films in less than 18 months. Jamie Lee Curtis has taken on many acting roles and has successfully performed the roles of producer, director, actor, blogger, and activist. There was a demure believability in Jamie Lee's performances. The daughter of Hollywood royalty, she appeared to be more versatile than the average teen slasher victim of the day, and her acting pedigree is clearly evident on the silver screen. Married to fellow actor Christopher Guest, the 5th Baron Hayden Guest, Jamie Lee Curtis is on a low-level rung of royalty, making her the closest to being an actual Scream Queen. Caroline Munro. Caroline Munro is an English actress, model, and singer known for her many appearances in horror, science fiction, and action films of the 1970s and 80s. The beautiful Miss Munro, a former Bond girl from the film The Spy Who Loved Me, was a mainstay horror icon in the 1970s and 1980s, with film roles in classic horror films such as The Abominable Dr. Phibes, Dracula AD 1972, Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter, Maniac, The Last Horror Film, and my personal favorite, Slaughter High. In 2019, she was inducted into the Rondo Hatton Classic Horror Awards Monster Kid Hall of Fame. Danielle Harris. Starting her long career in horror at such a young age in 1988's Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, Danielle has grown up to be such a horror genre powerhouse. Her impressive list of genre films warrants her inclusion on the list of all-time Scream Queen greats. Her early role as Jamie Lloyd in 2 of the original Halloween franchise films is one of the best performances by a child in horror films. Having grown up on screen starring in horror films for the past 35 years, Danielle can take her frightening performances to a terrifying new level, as evidenced in her brutal confrontations with both Michael Myers in 2009's Halloween 2 reboot, and with deformed Bayou Beast Victor Crowley in the Hatchet series. She's also very easy to look at. These horror icons lit up the screens with their fantastic horror filmography. Coming up, we'll take a look at some of the biggest villains of horror that debuted in the 1990s, like Hannibal Lecter, Candyman, and Ghostface, which we'll be exploring in our next video. Stay tuned and see you next time.